Learning a new skill almost always involves confusion, frustration, and overwhelm. At least, that's what it's typically like for me. But through trial and error, and watching a lot of YouTube videos, new skills become easier. I've made socks before, once on double-pointed needles, and a few times using the magic loop method, but I've never tried to make two at a time before. This method is kind of like the magic loop method, except it involves more shuffling and a longer cable. Oh yeah, and you knit both socks at the same time instead of the usual one at a time, as the name implies. But even though I've made socks before, there was still a lot for me to figure out and learn. Which brings me to the beginner state of mind. But first, let me tell you a bit about what I'm doing. I started by dividing all my yarn in half, and then got to work using an easy pattern I'm familiar with by Summer Lee Design Co. that I will link down below. And I watched some YouTube videos as well as I went to figure out how to use the pattern with the two at a time method. So watch those if you want a tutorial, because this video is more of a vlog as I take you along for the creation and share my struggles, thoughts, and things I've learned. And speaking of things I've learned, the confusion starts at cast on. Instead of casting on one sock and then the other, you cast on half the first sock with one ball of yarn, then switch to a different ball of yarn and cast on all stitches for the second sock, then switch back to the first ball of yarn and finish casting on the first sock. It was a bit of a struggle, but I got there. Now let's get back to the beginner state of mind. There are a few things I have to remind myself of when learning a new skill. First, accept mistakes as part of the process and see them as a learning opportunity. Learning to identify and repair mistakes is just as important as learning this skill itself. Second, it's okay to be slow. Take your time and let everything sink in. Learning a new skill does not have to be like a race. In my opinion, a frantic mind is not very receptive to learning. And third, it doesn't have to be perfect, both the process and the outcome. Forget what you think you know the process is supposed to be like. As a beginner at something, you're bound to have hiccups and mistakes. Don't be hypercritical or a perfectionist about it. Those things do not serve you when learning something new. I like to rotate my stitches at the end of the loop here, so I don't get what's called ladders where there's like runs up the side. Like right here's a little bit. When you do socks one at a time, you can do that on both ends where you like move the stitches, but with two at a time socks there's always one end that you're not going to be able to do that to, so you got to remember to like pull the stitches tight. So that is maybe one of the downsides of two at a time, is like I can't do that on both sides, but we'll see at the end how noticeable it is. And you want to make sure you pick up the yarn that goes with the right sock, or else you'll have connected socks. This little green one here, yeah, oopsie, I gotta take out that row. Alright, so it is time for me to start the heel, but I'm going to take a second to untangle some things. Normally there wouldn't be this many strands, but I am doing stripy socks, so that adds a few extra balls of yarn. Wasn't exactly anticipating this, but makes sense, should have thought of it. So since I like to move my stitches, I put a stitch marker where the stitches are initially divided. And normally, if I was doing one at a time socks, I would have two stitch markers, but this side over here is where the other divider would be. And so I'm going to move them to the end of this loop. Now I'm going to move the stitch marker to the middle, and I'm going to pull the loop up where that stitch marker is at and divide the stitches there. And then now I should have an even number of stitches on this side and this side. They should be the same, but we are ready to start the heel. The heels are worked one at a time in rows, back and forth, instead of in the round, which for me is a nice change of pace after working straight knit stitches in the round. Alright, I've got the heel flaps made, and it's time to turn the heels now. Finished one heel turn, it's time to do the other, but I need to get to these stitches, so I need to slip all of these over to the other one. Okay, now both of my heel flaps are done. It is time to pick up the stitches around the side for the gusset. I think for two at a time socks, I pick up this side and then I move to this side and pick up half and work around and then come back to the other sock, I think. I would definitely say that 2 at a time socks are more suitable for intermediate to advanced knitters and people that have done socks before, because having the base knowledge of the anatomy of socks and the general flow of it helps so much in trying to figure out where the stitches should be on your needle. I cannot imagine trying 2 at a time socks for my very first socks. I would have been so confused and I might have never made socks again. Okay, so now I've picked up all of those stitches. Took a bit of critical thinking and focus to figure out how to do this with 2 at a time, but I did it. So now that all my stitches are on, it's time to decrease for the gusset, and hopefully it's smooth sailing from here. Hopefully navigating the heel was the hardest part. Alright, so it's been several months since my last update because I abandoned this project as soon as the warm weather started coming in. I was on track to finish it in like 2 weeks. I'm on like the home stretch. I've got like half of the foot part done and it's literally just knit all the way around. So hopefully I can just finish it in a few days and knock it out. It is November now, so the weather is colder and I'm getting in the mood to knit again. So hopefully this will go fast. So another couple of months has gone by, but I'm so close. I literally just have the toes left. I've got a couple of my trusty companions here to help motivate me. I never anticipated that this project would end up taking me nearly a year, but I do have this track record with projects where I tend to sit them down and forget about them. But unlike my other projects, I actually came back to this one. Now just a little bit of Kitchener stitch to finish off these toes, and we're so close to being done. Okay, I just finished doing the toes, and now I just need to finish up weaving in these ends and give them a quick wash. Also, if you're interested in how I wash my handmade stuff, I have a video about that I will link below. And if you want to join me on some of my other creative adventures, be sure to check out my Behind the Makings playlist. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. If you like this video and want to come along on future adventures, be sure to subscribe. I hope to see you again soon in the next video. But until then, go forth and create, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!